Well, hello all. Another miserable, beautiful California blue sky day. We're finally supposed to get some cool weather, wind, and actually showers or rain by Tuesday. Don't know if that's going to happen or not. It's looking like it's kind of falling apart, but weather is one of the subjects we're going to talk about today. We're right over here. It's the deep forest. Something about doing a video in the deep forest. It's kind of, you never know what's going to come out of the deep forest. While we're waiting, let's talk about nitrous oxide, or N2O. Has been on the rise since 2009. Well, here's one you haven't heard before. Nitrous oxide has increased faster than estimated by the IPCC. That's the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So there seems to be one basic cause of the increase, and that, of course, is the increased use of nitrogen fertilizer, which gives off a huge amount of nitrous oxide. Also, it's from widespread cultivation of nitrogen-fixing crops, such as clover, soy, alfalfa, lupins, and peanuts. These all cause a great increase in nitrous oxide. So globally, between 2000 and 2005, nitrous oxide emissions have increased by 10% globally. Let me show you a graph of how much influence these different gases have and which ones are the biggest as far as greenhouse gas emissions go. As you can see, it's N2O is pretty small in the big scheme of things compared to CO2. You always ask me why you pay so much attention to CO2. It's because of this graph right here. Let me show you this other graph of how fast the emissions are headed up. Oh, it's a great big, wow. That's the biggest hawk I've ever seen. Or maybe it was a huge owl. It's gone, but it was giganticus. I knew something good would come out of the deep forest. So, because of these increased greenhouse gases, El Niño has become more intense in the last 50 years. Now, history teaches us that when you change the environment in a big way, such as South America did about 500 to 600 years ago, they had clear-cut a lot of the rainforest around the Amazon and due north, which caused El Niño to flip from El Niño to La Niña about every 50 to 100 years. And they were so intense that it would go from desert conditions to pouring rain every single day for 50 years. The reason they found this is they found monuments that were so eroded from continuous rain. And by measuring the corals in the sea, they can tell when all the erosion happened, when it went from La Niña to El Niño. That's when we really find ourselves in deluges of rain. Here in the north of North America, this area gets deluged with pouring rain. Let me show you El Niño. As you can see, they are increasing, and the speed at which they're flipping from El Niño to La Niña is becoming faster and faster. We don't know what that means. We can't find that happening anywhere in history, where it flips very quickly and they sort of are very small, which was happening right now. Alright, we went to another location because I didn't like what I was hearing. So these swings, which are called the ENSO swings, are 25% stronger now than they were just 25 years ago, the study says. This study, by the way, took 25 years to complete. That's an amazing study. That is an accurate study. When you take that much time to study something, you know you're doing it right. There's not much we can do about this. The reason is because our food is so nitrogen intensive. In other words, these crops would never grow unless you put this high nitrogen fertilizer on it. By using these high nitrogen fertilizers, you're increasing crop yields by 3 to 7 times what they would be without them. And with a population of 7,700,000,000 plus, we have no choice. So nitrous oxide is going to increase. Fortunately, it's a small proportion compared to CO2. So it might be one of those gases that we can just kind of not completely ignore, but not pay too much attention to. All right, we've been walking in the forest without paths, and it's hard to do that. But I know how to get back because I can go by with the sound of all the traffic in that direction. We're gonna head off in this direction. It's getting pretty thick though. All right, we just got out of the jungle and now we're on the path. So what do we want to talk about next? Well, you know what comes next. The world is falling apart, isn't it? Let's talk some politics. No matter what the government, we're seeing what they call unrest. I call them protests. Unhappy people with the situation, whether it be rising fuel, rising food, rising rents. These corporations really have put us in a mess. And voting for a corporate candidate is going to put us into a bigger mess. So you kind of wonder, is it possible to get into a bigger mess? But I'm seeing a lot of corporate Democrats going on the Republican side of doing nothing but continuous lying. The truth. Oh, here we go. The truth has become something that we're not paying attention to much anymore. In fact, the entire Republican Party here in the U.S. is backing lying to the point where they're making up entire scenarios to try and get out of what they did illegally. This is just unreal. And unfortunately, like 50% of the U.S. is backing the liars. Now, maybe that's the way nature gets rid of overpopulation, is chaos takes over. Lying becomes the norm. People get very pissed off when you lie to them. And when it becomes the norm, you can't trust anybody, especially in the government, like the U.S. government at this time. Boy, isn't that a cool background? Wow, I love it. So I feel that most of the people that vote against impeachment are for lying and being illegal and not following the law that we put out there. It's as if about 48% of the world doesn't believe in laws, and the 52% or so that do believe in laws have to constantly fight to keep laws. So what is better? No laws, no truth, or truth in laws? That's my question today. Do we just for politics' sake, lie, swindle, and cheat? Is that perfectly okay now? You tell me. I sure know that when that has happened in the past, people are so busy fighting with each other, they just don't pay attention to what's right in front of them, like climate change emergency, that we should be paying attention to 100%. And we're not paying attention to it at all. We couldn't care less about climate change, whether it's here or not, because we live in our cozy little homes. So I'm just rambling here. I don't know why. But I feel today is about, we have to discuss, is lying okay? Is one half of the establishment following the law and the other half isn't? Who's right? You tell me. What kind of society would you rather live in? And it all is because of whom we put into office. We did not think about who we were going to put in, and we just put in somebody who was different than the corporate Democrat, Hillary. Even though we had a Jill Stein we could have voted in. I just about fell off the cliff, but that's okay. So what happened to truth-telling? Didn't used to be that difficult. Huh. So, I appreciate the ups, the downs, the new subscribers. And I definitely appreciate the comments. On another miserable California winter's day.